Framing. In this section, we're going to talk about framing. As you are the director's right hand, you need to know these rules as a storyboard artist. Again, rules in storyboarding and in film are only guidelines of what has worked. You can break the rules if it serves your story. You also need to know what rules you break and why you do it. Now, let's get started. Extreme wide shot, or so-called establishing shot. In this shot, we film the location of where the action takes place. We can have the characters farther away in the distance, or we may exclude them at all. Wide shot. In this framing, we get closer to the characters and we see the characters in full size. In this framing, we can recognize the character's body language, we can see their facial expression and get closer to their emotions. Medium long shot. We frame the characters even closer and we make sure we don't frame the characters and cut them on the joints, like for example their knees in this case. Just zoom in as close as that the framing of the camera is a little bit above their joints, above their knees, and in the middle of their thighs. This is kind of a room of thumb. Medium shot. The camera is framing the characters a little bit below their hips. Again, remember to place the framing above or below important joints of the body, like for example, the hips in that case. Medium close-up. Now the next three close-ups are very similar to each other, although they want to convey different ideas. The closer we get to one character, the more we can identify with the character's emotions. This framing is also used in dialogue scenes, where we can break the dynamic between using medium shot, medium close-up, and sometimes even medium long shot. Close-up. Here we frame the character's face. Extreme close-up. Here we frame the character's eyes. So what is the difference between the three close-ups, you may ask? As we know that the eyes are the windows to our souls, to our emotions. So the closer we get to the character's eyes, the better we are to read the character's emotions and therefore identify ourselves with the character. Of course, that doesn't mean that we have to keep the character in extreme close-up all the time so we identify with the characters. It's just that in certain moments we need to know what the character is feeling. If the character is taking a certain decision, for example, if it's going through an emotional state, it's good to show that struggle in extreme close-up. But we'll talk about that in the later sections. This framing is called bird's eye view. The camera is looking down from high above, as if from the eye of a bird. This framing is used to give us an overview of the surroundings, where the character is going, the vastness of the tasks ahead. For example, if there is an Armageddon, if it's a disaster, like for example a zombie attack, and we want to see that what is happening in our house is happening in the neighborhood and the next neighborhood and the whole town, then we will go slowly from our house, we'll lift camera up to the next neighborhood and we'll see the whole town, that fires and destructions are happening all over the city. It will give us an overview of the vastness of the disaster. Another example that you may recognize is from horror films. Like we have a group of teenagers that want to spend vacation in the woods. And we start the film with an establishing shot with a bird eye view, where we show that the cabin is not near any city or any town, it's far in the woods, which makes us know that when something happens further in the movie, there'll be no one around to help them. The bird's eye view conveys feeling of powerlessness, loneliness, being alone in a big world, for example. But it's not necessarily always so. It can also have a grand positive impact, like, for example, a crowd cheering after a victory. We use this shot to convey a very strong emotion on a grander scale. High-angle shot. This one is very similar to a bird's eye view, but the camera comes closer to the character. We use this framing to convey a sense of helplessness. The character is in disadvantage, for example. The character is losing her or her position in negotiation. We can have this shot like looking down on the character, like we feel the character's pressure of losing a negotiation. We use it to convey a fear of being lost, feeling lost. It doesn't have to be that the character is necessarily lost, but it's enough that the character feels lost. With this shot, we also convey the feeling of that the task is bigger than the character's potential to overcome it. Low-angle shot. In this shot, the camera is looking up at the character. The character looks big in the screen. With this shot, we want to convey feeling of power, decisiveness, being in advantage in negotiation, or winning a position of power. This includes even personal power, feeling empowered or confident. Tilted angle shot. In this shot, we tilt the camera so we create a dynamic line of action. With this shot, we create a feeling of dynamic, movement, danger, excitement, or disorientation. It gives a feeling of pace and action. This shot is very much used, for example, in car chases, when there is a danger in the situation. So those are a couple of rules or guidelines that you can have in mind when you do your storyboarding, and their only reason is to have a greater impact on your viewer and tell a better story with a greater emotional impact.